Well, welcome, Halie. Thank you so much for joining me on the Integrative Health Coach Success podcast. I'd love for you to tell our audience a little bit about yourself and what brought you to integrative health and IHP.
Yeah, so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And I was really drawn to IHP, especially because after 2020 and things shifting in my practice and realizing I really wanted to dive into more of like the functional and integrative space. I'm a trained chiropractor. I still do things in person and I still very much so practice chiropractic, but I always knew that I wanted to be able to do more. I got my master's in applied clinical nutrition while I was also in school. So I always knew that that was going to be a huge part of what I wanted to do. And seeing all that IHP had with being able to go through all the different functional testing and just a deep dive into everything that I could offer someone wherever they are. That was really appealing to me. And especially when I was looking at other different programs, sometimes they would only cover one test. Like maybe you'd only go over stool testing or you'd only go over HTMA or you'd only go over hormone testing. I love that I was able to get everything all at once and be able to, and I've kind of specialized in a few of those different testing on my own and just through what I see in practice. I use some more than others, but I loved how I would have the information for every single one so that I could, just offer whatever the person that I'm working with needed. And I just felt like it was a very all-encompassing program.
Yeah, I love that. It's funny. I think a lot of us kind of dove into it around the COVID time as well, just because we were all looking for those alternative things. And also so many people had to move their business online. And just like I've talked to a lot of personal trainers and people who are doing a lot of in-person things that needed to figure out how to bring things more virtual. And this kind of gives you that option. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of your business right now, you do a lot of different things. Can you tell us a little bit about the different things that you do?
Yeah. So if there's also anything that COVID taught me is I do not want to have all of my eggs in one basket. I always knew that no matter what, I always wanted to see people. I always want to have, I do have a brick and mortar where I see people, both chiropractic and kind of more for like integrative health stuff. But I wanted to be able to also see people virtually. That's, I'd say, majority of my practice. However, I wanted things outside of that so that when I'm traveling, I didn't want to just be solely reliant on my income just coming from one-on-one. So I created an online membership where I have all different courses on functional health, parasite protocols, functional medicine detoxes, and just general kind of like lifestyle medicine recipes, like very kind of surface level, because I understand that there's a barrier to entry when it comes to integrative or more functional care. So I really wanted the membership to be kind of like a middle ground where people could get in, ask questions on public forums if they weren't ready to work with me one-on-one. So to me, my membership has really been fun to continue to grow, because when someone hops in once, it's only going to continue to get better because new content and courses and webinars are always being dripped out. And it's nice because I don't have to have everything all there at once. It's not like I'm running through a program where I am constantly being forced to drip out content. It's kind of like a monthly subscription or yearly. You can come as you want. I run different challenges and stuff in there. I host various wellness retreats. I do 2 every single year here, like in Lake Placid in New York, and then I'm in the Finger Lakes. So we do one in the Finger Lakes. I've been asked to be a practitioner and be part of different wellness retreats, which is just, those completely just light my heart up. I love those. I love just like having a bunch of just like-minded people hanging out, spending the weekend together, wearing our blue light blockers, eating really healthy food. It's so cool. And especially because when you're in the health and wellness space, sometimes it can feel, I don't know, not lonely. I don't feel that way anymore, but sometimes I can see how it feels that way. So the retreats are just such an amazing job to connect with my community and build really great relationships and friendships. And, so I really love having a bunch of different things that I can be involved with that are still kind of having my common goal of just preaching health and wellness.
Yeah. And it's so cool because that's a lot of what I teach is not just doing the one-on-one, because like you said, you don't want all of your eggs in one basket. You want multiple income streams. You want to be able to support your community in multiple ways. And the membership model is one of the most powerful because it's recurring revenue, right? And it kind of compounds and it grows every month, and you create all this evergreen content. that you do once, you add to the membership, and then your job is very different. It's not like you're constantly having to churn stuff out. It's more supporting the people in there. And often the people in there end up becoming clients in other ways as well. Because
exactly. That's something that I see a lot. Something I see all the time where people get in, and I'm saying, if you don't know where to start there. And it's like, it's a low barrier to entry compared to like a high ticket one-on-one or package option. So it's nice. It gets people in the door. But then I do also, as an incentive for my membership, I do offer discounted one-on-one prices where people can either get that on a package, or if they want to stay in the membership, but just maybe do like calls with me once in a while. I even have like a feature with my membership that if you wanted to do like more of an elite membership where you meet with me every single month, that's like a different premium price. So it's definitely tiered depending on what people feel like they need.
Yeah, but you're right. The low barrier to entry is so important because so many people, there are people at all different levels. There are people who've spent their entire life saving, trying to get to where they're at now, and they can't afford as much one-on-one. Right. And so, you don't want to turn those people away. You want to give them a home. You want to give them that support, because that's the other thing is, if you're ill or you're sick or you're trying to get better, that is also really lonely. I've been through that. I was sick most of my life and I was very lonely because you avoid, you don't have the energy to meet people in person. Right. And these types of communities are so powerful for that, is like feeling like you're connected to other people who also are kind of going through what you're going through. So I think it's such a powerful model that I've been talking a lot about. I have my own membership as well. I've been talking to a lot of people about, and a lot of people are starting to slowly kind of move that direction, because one-on-one doing it, 40 hours a week is also a big drain on a lot of people.
Yeah, I knew I didn't want to do that because it is very draining, and I don't want to feel drained going into a session when people are like expecting me to be 100%, and it could be a lot. And so I definitely see less people a week, but I also prioritize my time where like I have content days where I just do content either for social media or my membership, so that it's kind of like a way that I can recharge a little bit, but also I can be serving people in a different way.
I like that you mentioned that, because that's also, project management is one of the biggest pain points I hear from health coaches. They really struggle to figure out how to actually get stuff done, because they're not bulk creating. They're not having a content day and giving themselves that entire day to knock things out. If you that's one of the ways that I set my schedule up, is I only allow one-on-ones on certain days. So the other days I can get into deep focus and I can get the foundations and the content and all of that done. And I think that's really important as you're trying to juggle a lot of different things and build your business. And like you have multiple different offers, is bulk creating and setting yourself up in that way so that you can always laser focus, because you're right. You want to bring the energy, you want to bring the deep focus to your one-on-one sessions as well. And if you're
right, I don't want it to just be fast food for integrative health, because that's how people feel right now in the conventional model, where they're being seen for 5 minutes. And plus I need time to be able to research, read labs, create their protocols. And I can't do that if I'm seeing people from 8 to 6 every single day. And that's just not what I wanted. I know there's people out there that they do it and they make it work. It's just not what I want. I feel like I'm able to give better care, but also be able to just serve a lot of different, like I can, even if people just listen to my podcast, I'm able to record podcasts and find ways to monetize off of that, whether it's through affiliates or brand stuff, or a lot of those people do end up being conversions to one-on-one, or they hop in my membership because they're like, oh my gosh, this is so great. I mean, I can't imagine what everything else is like. And so I just feel like I'm not able to pour into those things if I'm super drained.
Yeah, 100%. And your podcast, how long have you been doing that?
2020? Yeah, 2020. Oh, 2020 was just the year.
Okay, that's amazing. Is it a podcast? How often do you drop one?
I do one every single Wednesday. There's periods throughout the month. I think like in the end of the summer, I generally take a break and we'll just kind of take a few weeks to recharge or not record anything. But I don't know. That's kind of sporadic. It's kind of whenever I'm feeling it. Like I'm never going to force myself to create content if it's not authentic. But for the most part, I generally have one every single week. And I think we're on 185 episodes now. So yeah, it's been great. I love it.
Yeah. And is that a pretty good funnel to your other offers?
Definitely. Oh yeah. There's so many when I have discovery calls and I'm like, how'd you hear about me? 85 to 90% of the time, it's like either Instagram or your podcast.
Okay.
I mean, maybe like I'd say maybe sometimes it's also friend, but like a very high percentile of that is like through one of my platforms like that. Social media membership, Instagram.
Yeah. And can you tell us a little bit more about your retreats? Because retreats are something so many people want to do, but they seem so kind of scary because there's a lot of logistics, there's all that stuff. Can you just kind of give us a little bit about your retreats and,
there's a lot of logistics. It's a lot. But I definitely, I'm a huge planner. So to me, it's great. And my friend, and colleague that we co-host with, we kind of help to really balance what each other isn't super good at, or maybe like, enhance some of our weak points with each other. So when it comes to planning a retreat, as of right now, we're planning in areas that we're familiar with. So I'm in the Finger Lakes, so I get a lake house right locally. I know where it is. I also know we know exactly the farmers that we're getting these foods from, because what's really daunting to me is like, okay, say we go out to just a random state somewhere, and then it's like, now I have to establish connections with everybody. Whereas right now we both have very deep roots in our community where we know the healers, we know who can come and do sound bath. We know who can, come and do facials or massage. Like we have really good connections in the areas that we're in. So for me, it's very scary to be like, I'm just going to go to Florida and do a retreat where I have to. So that is maybe something that I do eventually want to do. But for right now, just being able to, I shop at a farmer's market and I have a local farmer that I get all of our food from. So I talk with her, go through a menu. We just recently brought in a holistic private chef who takes all of the meals off of our hands, because it was starting to be a lot. We were the administrators, we led everything, we would cook everything, and it started to be a lot. So we are outsourcing at least the meals for right now. We lead a lot of the activities, but we generally will do kind of little wellness activities depending on where we are, what season it is, what we're looking for, what kind of we're looking to be the vibe. But we generally do like a Thursday evening check-in, all day Friday, all day Saturday, wrap up on Sunday morning. And it's an amazing weekend. We all stay in one house. All the meals are obviously cooked in house, and we lead a lot of I kind of handle like the more internal hormones, gut health. And, my colleague does a lot more of like the yoga, the mindfulness, the kind of, here's the information. How do we put this into our daily life, kind of the action piece. So I feel like that really complements everything really well. And there's something I definitely plan to continue. There's a huge market out there for them. And, I definitely love doing them.
Yeah, no, that's such great advice. Cause I think so many people that I've talked to are like, I want to do it in the Caribbean. I want to do it in these places. I'm like, do you know anyone there? Do you have any connections? Do you know people who can come in to, do the food? It seems like if someone's just getting started, doing it locally is probably
a great idea. And I think like there are people that do like these crazy retreats, but I don't know how much control you have over the planning, because I think a lot of people use like different third-party companies to like kind of promote the retreats and stuff, which is fine. But for us, like we want it to totally be on brand with everything we're doing. Like no matter where we're eating or what we're eating, like we know that there is nothing in it that we don't want it to be. Whereas I don't know if you go to like, one in Mexico, like, are they still going to cook it in an oil that I don't like, that doesn't kind of fit the brand. So that's one thing I worry about with outsourcing things. But yeah, if you're nervous about it, even just start doing day events, like meetups, or like a day retreat where you can maybe meet up in the morning, do a walk, do some yoga, do a workshop. it doesn't have to be a whole weekend long, but it's really cool. We have had people from make quite the trek for these things. From various states. I think the furthest west we've had, I'm trying to remember actually now. We've had like Wisconsin, Texas. I think Texas is the farthest we've had, but regardless, it's you can still also make really deep connections with people in your area if you're doing it locally too.
Yeah. And did most of the people come from, again, social and your podcast? Do you do just most of the promotion there?
Yeah, some people are people who I have connections with, or we both have connections with locally, but I'd say 80% of it is probably coming from social media.
Okay. Yeah. Cause a lot of people are worried, okay, am I going to get enough people to sign up? And you do all
That's
the
a whole other
logistics
thing.
and you prepay for stuff and then you get like 3 people,
That's
and
scary.
I think that's what's really scary, but it's, the dream of a lot of the practitioners I talk to is like, that's the offer. Was that kind of one of the last offers you added to your suite?
Um, I'm just trying to think. We started doing the first one we did was December of 2021. So yeah, I mean, I had a podcast. I was very diligent about social media. I had an already established practice. So yeah, that was probably like the last of those things. And I would say that's definitely a very real worry. Like our first one, we were scrambling to be able to fill. But once we filled it, we gave those people the absolute best experience that we possibly could. And I mean, even looking where we were then to where we are now, it's totally different. Like we didn't have a private chef. We aren't making the meals that we are now. Like it's so different. But once we got content and testimonials, our last one sold out in just a few hours. So, it's definitely possible. And I understand that it's like, I think anything, even being your own boss or if you have your own practice, like that's a scary leap. I mean, you're relying on your whole income. It's the same type of a situation whenever you branch off and do anything like that. But if it's really something you want to do, you'll make it work.
Yeah. Do you get people who come again, like retreat people?
Oh yeah. I'm trying to think this next one. Yeah. I mean, this one actually had a good amount of, and I remember one of the girls, she messaged me and she didn't sign up right away because she didn't know if she would be able to make it. And she was like in a panic. And it's one of those things where they're like, when they come, they're so excited to come back, which is just such a cool feeling. I mean, they end up, it's like just a big group of friends hanging out and doing just like a bunch of wellness things. I mean, we really have created such a cool community through these.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I like what you mentioned at the beginning about collaborating, because I think that's so important, is to find people who have skills that kind of, work well with yours. And, because a lot of health practitioners come into this and they see other health practitioners as competition, but there's plenty of people out there for all of us to help. And so there's definitely going to be people in your local area who would love to come together on something like this. And like you said, maybe you're the planner, maybe she's the logistics person, right? You bring different skill sets together. And I think that's powerful in kind of any offer, whether it's a membership, a retreat, is that, working with other people is only potentially going to make the experience better and be able to provide more value for your clients.
Exactly. And one of these other retreats that I'm part of, the Synergy retreats, who one of my friends created kind of like, and I don't see her events as by any means a competition of mine. She's one of my very dear friends. We're in other kind of collaborations together, and going to her events, like I'm promoting her events because I'm going to them and I love them and I'm part of them just as much. And I think there's not a shortage of retreats, they're like, sometimes people are busy, sometimes, and her, they all are very different. Like hers are very different than mine. And, I think that that's what's amazing, is the second we can kind of step aside and not see it as much of a competition and like see that we all offer something a little bit different. I think that's more of what we all need in this space.
Yeah, I agree. We all have our unique experience, our unique ability to help people. And again, being willing to come together with people is, especially for someone wanting to start a retreat, maybe first they work with someone else's retreat and they learn what the experience is like, and they get that, those reps under their belt before they create their own from scratch.
Right. And then you can get content, you can get feedback, you can get testimonials, all that are very valuable. I mean, that's kind of the currency of like how people are going to know that it's legitimate, is they just want to hear, like, did somebody else have a good experience with what you did?
Yeah. And I think that's so important with any offer is the testimonials, is, gathering testimonials and social proof, which isn't just testimonials. It's like, what's happening in the back end, the communication you're having, what does that all look like? Because that's what's really going to sell most people on your membership, your retreat, your one-on-one coaching, and figuring out that, that system and making sure you're gathering those things to be able to use for social proof and for stories, and is going to be so, so important. So
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, no, I think, you use so much content. Do you have any suggestions for people who are very intimidated by creating and putting out content?
Sometimes it's just such a necessary evil. So it's just one of those things that no matter what, I mean, one, I think Canva is a lifesaver in terms of creating content. Two, like pull your audience, see what they're struggling with. It doesn't have to be crazy. I don't spend a lot of time editing and just making like the perfect video. I find that the more kind of authentic that it is, the better. I mean, I definitely want it to look nice. You want it to look appealing. That's how you're going to grab people's attention. But a lot of my content is kind of made by, okay, what are common trends that I'm seeing in my one-on-ones? What are common questions that I'm getting via DMs? What are things that people in my membership are struggling with? What are question box answers that I'm getting on social media? I mean, a lot of that is what drives my content, because it's like, okay, this is clearly what somebody wants to learn about. This is something that people are interested in. And it's not just like me being like, I'm going to talk about the mitochondria. Meanwhile, like nobody's ever asked me about energy or anything. That's not necessarily the case, but like, appealing to what your audience is looking for is obviously really important, and what your ideal demographic or your ideal client is looking for. I work with a lot of gut, skin, healing, hormones. So that's pretty much what I drive my content around, because that's what I want to talk about. That's my bread and butter. That's what I love to do. And so that's going to attract people who need that type of stuff. So I do the same type of thing with my podcast. And then, yeah, in terms of like actually creating it, sometimes it is kind of impromptu. Like if I get a question, I'm like, oh my gosh, that would make a good post. I don't always plan it. I do like to have things in my drafts or things that I'm kind of working on, but sometimes I just like to, okay, this is something I've been asked about a lot. Let's kind of dive into this a little bit deeper.
Yeah, I think that's such a good piece of advice, because a lot of people skip the market research step. They skip the step of like looking at what people are asking. And so they just go straight to ChatGPT and type in, give me 10, things to talk about for detox, right? But they're not listening to their audience. And it is, someone sends you a DM with a question. That's something other people are probably asking as well.
Exactly.
Right? And just keeping notes of that and realizing that it doesn't need to be perfect. Mm-hmm. It's just more getting it out there, being authentic. I think that's so important, because perfectionism really holds a lot of people back, especially
it does.
Started.
And don't be afraid to repurpose. I've probably said the same 5 things 1,000 times, whether it's on my podcast that I convert into a post that I then later at some point turn into a reel. It's not like I'm saying verbatim the same exact thing, but the message is the same. I always say if people paid real close attention to what I say in my podcast and read every single post, they wouldn't need me, truthfully. So, I mean, that's probably too much information, but I am constantly just trying to kind of recycle things, especially when you're saying the same 5 things all the time. Just find different ways to say it. You make it into a carousel, and then sometimes you do like an aesthetic video, and maybe you do a text overlay, or maybe you're talking to the camera. There's so many different ways that you can do it, but I'd say don't try to reinvent the wheel. Don't think that you need to create these theories about detox and hormones that nobody's ever talked about, because that's not likely just going to burn you out, or it's I don't know, maybe you'll be a reel or viral reel or something off of it, but I just don't find that to be super smart.
Yeah, I love that so much, because people need to hear the same message several times. Right? Like
more than several times.
They need it to stick in.
Right.
If you're constantly putting out new information, that might be overwhelming. It might be too much. It might be too in-depth and sciencey for someone who just needs the basics, right? Mm-hmm. And so many people don't recognize that they have kind of their own framework. Like, how do they get someone to their end goal, or what's their framework for better sleep? Right? That framework you can use over and over and over in so many places and so many pieces of content. And like you said, just word it differently, but even you can pretty much almost say the same thing on many different videos on every platform. And it's just a big part of your core message. So when people come to you, they think, oh, I remember Kate, she was talking about X, Y, and Z. They can associate that with you. Exactly. And yeah, I think that's such a good piece of advice. No one's ever kind of mentioned that on here, which is great.
Oh, good.
No, I think that's going to be really helpful to people, because I think they do think everything's got to be so different. It's got to be fresh and new every single time. And that can feel really overwhelming.
It is. And I mean, and you're different. Like, I'm not saying a lot of different things than other people, but people choose to come to me for either my personality, how I'm portraying the information, if I'm answering their questions, I don't know. But like just because I'm saying the same things as so many other health practitioners who specialize in gut health, skin health, and hormones, people choose to work with me for a reason. I mean, we're saying the same thing.
Yeah. And that's exactly it, is they're drawn to you because of your personality, some common thing in your story,
Right.
just the energy you put out. And that's going to be the same with everybody. And so just don't be afraid to put yourself out there and be your authentic self. I think that's so important in personal branding and building connections.
And I think that's where a lot of practitioners make a mistake is I don't classify myself as an influencer, but I definitely kind of like to bridge the gap between influencer, and I mean, I say that in quotes, and a practitioner, because like I do show my personal life. I show my personality. I am not always, I show that stuff on my social media. I show myself working out. I show my life, my dog, what I think might be annoying and when people aren't paying attention, and like that might turn some people off. That's not what typical doctors do, but like that's just who I am. And so I show that stuff, but that draws people in versus people who are like, today we're going to talk about this. Today we're going to talk about this. Okay. Nobody's going to resonate with it. They're going to maybe get some information from it, but like, I want people to feel like when they listen to my podcast or when they listen to my post, like, it's like they're hearing it from a friend, not from a doctor.
Yeah, like they know you. That's exactly it. It creates more of that personal connection. And, people have a lot of choices. They have a lot of choices out there. They're going to make a choice to work with you or move closer to you because of that personal connection. And that's the same thing with me, is like, I work in stuff about my dog. I post about my dog, about cycling, about, me messing up and cooking. Like I post more of the personal stuff because it really creates that, know, like, and trust factor. And then I'm not just, creating the perfect reel every time. It's like, there's funny stuff happening behind the scenes. And I'm, I think that's so important. And most people that I see, they shy away from showing their personal life. Instead, they just repost lots of other people's posts all the time, and to their stories. Like they're just sharing other people's stories and not sharing the behind the scenes of their life. That's not building a relationship with your audience at all.
No, if anything, it's helping build the people that you're sharing, because they're going to go to their person's page and they're going to be like, oh my God, I have the same dog as them. Oh my gosh, they're so funny. I like their outfit. And so that's like what I still reshare things that resonate with me. And then I'll maybe talk about why it resonates with me more, or like why it's more personalized to me, or a fiery comment about what I just saw. But I really do think that that's where practitioners can really level up, is kind of being able to bridge the gap, having a personal brand, and that's going to just make your content that much more appealing to a lot of people.
Yeah. And especially with new IHPs or new health coaches, is you're pretty much starting from scratch your own personal brand. And, you're building your community of people who are going to be attracted to you personally and how you can help them. And so be very clear on, how you can help people, what outcomes you can help people achieve. And so I guess that's one of the last questions I have for you, is like, do you specialize in anything, helping people with their gut, or is it kind of just big picture overall health?
I mean, I would definitely say I do a lot of gut health, skin conditions, acne, eczema, and also, hormones. I mean, hormones is a lot of what I do, but I mean, that doesn't mean that I don't work with, you name it, I've probably seen it, but I'd say like, that's kind of more so where most of my practice is. And
is that because that was part of your story and that's something you overcome?
Yep. That, and like, it's stuff that I'm really interested in. It's stuff that, I love learning about, and like, it's super interesting to me. I get it. And yes, I probably also resonate a lot with it. And it's interesting to me probably because I've also dealt with it myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. This was so, so valuable. I really appreciate your time. And where can people find you?
Yeah. So I'm most active on Instagram at Dr. Halie Schoff. I'm at Dr. Halie Schoff on TikTok. My website, drhalieschoff.com. I keep it really streamlined.
Yeah. And your podcast?
Oh yeah. Alpha Health and Wellness Radio. Thank you. My podcast. Thank you. Yeah. So, it's a lot of fun. I've got a lot of different things going on, and it's trying to just kind of build out all these different platforms and just like you said, or in the beginning, kind of having multiple different avenues of different income and just streams that people can be able to find you and stuff like that. I think that's really important, especially with all the different, there's so many people doing this stuff out there now.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, having more ways people can work with you and more ways people can find you, and repurposing content and, creating evergreen assets is just so powerful. And it sounds like you've been really, really great about building your community, because when you build a community on any platform in person, those people are the ones who are likely going to work with you either one-on-one or in your actual membership. But the community building aspects is so big. And, with all the stuff you're doing, it sounds like you've been really, really successful at that. So
thanks. I'm trying. Sometimes it doesn't feel that way. Sometimes I feel, we always go up and down, or we have hard expectations for ourselves. But I very much so appreciate that. And yeah, I just, I'm just going to keep chugging along.
Yeah, well, I love this conversation. I love hearing what you're doing, and that you've sold out retreats in a couple hours. I think that's the dream for so many people.
Thank you.
And also the membership aspect is so, so cool. So I can't wait to check in with you later. And again, thank you so much for the time. And I hope all of our listeners enjoyed that. Make sure to subscribe on any of the podcast platforms or on YouTube. And I look forward to connecting with you again.
Awesome. Thanks.